We're going to be working on making some stream overlays, guys. So if you take a look at my overlay, it's nothing super flashy. One advantage to having a static overlay is it doesn't take up really any system resources. So if you're on an older PC with maybe not super high specs, your overlay, if it's animated, can really use up some system resources. I go with a static overlay because I like a cleaner look and because I want to free up as many system resources as I can. I want my stream to look good. I want my camera to look good. I don't necessarily care about animated elements while I'm playing. So if I was going to design an overlay for this user, how would I do that? Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to make one real similar to what I have. I'm going to be using Photoshop. You can do everything that I'm going to do here today with Photopea or GIMP, the free solutions. Okay, so this is my overlay and you can see everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build in everything that's not going to change frequently at all. My social medias aren't going to change. My schedule's probably not going to change anytime soon. Okay, and then you can see I left the bar blank down here. And then there is a Stream Elements overlay, you know, below with all that information laid on top of that in OBS. And we're going to use this as a base design. So the first thing we would want to do is make a brand new 1920 by 1080 image, assuming that's the resolution you're streaming at. Some people are streaming at 720p and you can make a 720p image. There's two reasons why you might want to make the overlay yourself. One, you want it to be your creation, right? So that nobody that ever comes to your stream is going to have any chance of having seen that overlay before. The other reason is you don't want to go pay for one, right? A lot of us are on a budget and we don't want to go pay for an overlay somewhere. All right, so what we're going to end up with is something real similar to this. And it's all going to be one image that you can just layer into OBS and put all your other elements behind. Over here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a select all and copy and paste. What that's going to do is give me another layer that's the same size as my image. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that. And I'm going to change the paint bucket to just like a gray color here. And I'm going to dump gray into that layer. So now I have a full screen gray image. Why am I doing that? Because I want to be able to do this: edit, transform, scale. This is going to represent where my game is going to go. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit more. So what I'm guaranteed now is this is the correct aspect ratio because I took a full screen graphic and scaled it down a bit. I can be sure that that's the correct aspect ratio. When I scale my game down to it, it's not going to be cutting anything off. So I'm just going to move this kind of where I want it by nudging it with the keys. And you can see, just like in mine, I've got a little strip over here. I've got a wider strip over here. And I've got my top and bottom. Down here, I can put my info bar. Up here, I can maybe put some social media info. Now we want to put in our camera box. And you can see I kind of overlapped a little bit. Now here's something important. What you would want to do is go get a full screen capture of your gameplay. What I've got here is a screen grab of one of my streams. So you can see I used to have my camera box over here. I actually like this now. I actually like having my gameplay in a slightly smaller screen and then being able to display my stream schedule, my social media. The reason I say it's good to get a capture of your gameplay, we've got our camera box kind of popped over the game screen a little bit. You want to make sure wherever you're positioning your camera box that it's not obscuring some important info on your gameplay. For example, if this was down a little bit, I'd be obscuring medals when I picked up animals in Call of the Wild. And I don't want to have my camera box covering up, especially when I get a diamond, right? I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. And that is where I'm going to put a camera box. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it. I want to leave some room up here for my stream schedule. I'm going to kind of eyeball it here. I'm going to put my camera box say right about here. And I'm going to fill this in with a slightly darker gray, just so I can distinguish it from my gameplay. Okay, and it looks like I want to bump that up even just a little bit more. Okay, now that I have my positioning good, this is where my camera's going to be. This is where my gameplay is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and start building these lines that I use as borders for those things. Again, we're using this as a base design, so I'm going to sample some of the colors so that this matches up. You know, assuming this was my offline screen, my starting soon screen, my banner image at the top of my Twitch page. So let me grab this light purple. I can sample it with the eyedropper tool there. Then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do a select all. And I'm going to nudge up and down real quick. That's going to capture my box. Now I'm going to do a stroke. I'm going to use the stroke tool to make a border here. And I'm going to do that in a new layer. Okay. And now this one I'm actually going to label. And I'm going to label Cambox. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do a edit. Got to be on that layer. Edit, stroke. And I'm going to do an inside stroke at, let's go 8 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to use that same width for my camera box. So you can see now when I turn off the layer underneath, I've got a purple camera box. All right, now I'm going to grab a different color. What would complement that nicely? Let's grab this gold. And here we're going to go now to the screen layer. Select all. And again, I'm going to nudge with the move tool selected, nudge up and down. Now I've got that selected. I'm going to make another new layer. And I'm going to call this one screen box. Okay, so now I've got my 2 boxes and I'm going to take the screen and put it underneath the camera. Okay, we have a slightly tricky step coming up, guys. So watch, I'm going to make a copy of both of these. Okay, and I do that by dragging this down to the little plus sign down here. And I'm going to copy this one also. Okay, why am I doing that? Because if later I ever want to come back and rebuild this and move the camera box around, I have the original sources. Okay, but I'm going to turn those off so they're not visible right now. Okay, and now I need to do some cutting out. So I want to eliminate this bar from the screen layer so it's not running through the middle of my camera. Righty, so I'm going to go to that layer, the screen copy, and I'm just going to carefully drag a selection around that. And then I'm going to delete that piece of it. Now for the background back here, again, we're working with this image, right? So let's select all, edit, copy. And we're going to put this in the very background. So I'm going to select my background image. Okay, now here, select the background and paste. All right, so now I need to cut out holes in the background here so that we can actually see our camera and our gameplay. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to do a select all on this layer. And again, I'm going to nudge up and down. And I'm going to go to the background layer and press delete, turning it so it's invisible. So you can see, I can see all the way through to the background. So if I turn the background off, you can see it's transparent. That's how we're going to save it later. And now we need to cut out the camera box. So I'm going to do a select all on that layer. I'm going to nudge up and down. And then we're going to come here to the background layer. I'm going to turn off this gray camera box and I'm going to delete. So now I can see right through. And again, if I turn the background off, I've got what I need there. What else do we want to add in here? If you have your social medias, you could simply add them across the top of the screen up there. All of these logos you could grab these logos from online. They're really easy to find. And then you can pretty easily just copy and paste those logos, size them down, and then use the text tool to put in your information. If you wanted to put your schedule up here in the upper left-hand corner, that would be really easy to do. So I'm going to show you how to add the schedule because that's tricky. That's a little bit tricky. If you wanted to add a schedule up there, make a new layer up here. And I'm going to put in a box. This big. We don't have to size it perfectly right now. I'm going to make it black and we'll adjust the transparency in a minute. So I'm filling that in. And then I want to cut out what I don't need there. So let's make it transparent for a minute. And then I can use the selection tool to cut out that little corner of it. And then it's overlapping our camera box a little bit. So let's also get rid of that. And we can see it's overlapping just a tad there. So I might bump it up just a little bit using the nudge tool again. My keys. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then I could easily put some text in there. Stream, schedule. And then over here in the text tool, we can adjust the size of that text. The other thing you can adjust with text is the right over here, it's spacing between the letters. So I want to kind of spread that out a little bit to make it fill the top of that box. See, 100 should do it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we're going to nudge it over just a little bit. Okay, and then what I would do is actually make a copy of that to put in the actual days I'm going to stream. Let's say you streamed 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and let's say you always started at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So for those days, you can see it's running off my box a little bit. So I'll just go back over here and readjust this. There we go. So I set it to 50 spacing instead of 100. Now it fits in there. And then something nice to do with your schedule. The schedule title I've gotten white so it pops there a little bit. But I'm going to change the color of the schedule itself to another color from the... Okay, that blends a little too much, so let's lighten it up. That looks pretty good. All right. So there would be your basic overlay. And again, you could put your social medias up here. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now, but it'd be really simple to do, right? Cut and paste the logos from the internet, use the text that you're using to put in your social media tags, make it look something like that. Then you'd have your social media tags up there. So now what we're going to do is make sure we save this. And then I'm going to go ahead and export it. And we're going to export it as a ping. Okay, and I'm just going to call it sample overlay. And then I'm going to go over to my streaming software. Okay, so I've got an empty seam with my game capture in it. So we just made an overlay. We've got an empty OBS scene here. I've added my game capture. And all we're going to do is add an image. Add source. We're going to add a new one. We're going to call it our overlay. And I'm going to browse for it. Okay, there's our overlay. I'm going to lock it so I don't accidentally move it. Now you can see the first thing we have to do is scale our game capture down. I want it to fit this gold box. And I can nudge it with my arrow keys. Just want to make sure we don't have any gaps around the edge. All right, so now our game captures fit. Now we want to add our camera. We want to add a video capture device. We're going to pretend this is our camera. There's our camera capture. Now we want to put that behind the overlay and we're going to scale it. Now let's pretend that VCam is where you are on your camera, right? Because we've got to fit the camera box. So the camera shows us, right? We don't want to show like the wall behind us. And you can see if I go full screen, this is my full camera. This is what my camera can see. But over here, I've cropped it down to fit the cam box that I use for gameplay and for these Friday streams. So what I can do is by holding the Alt key, okay, I can crop the camera. Okay, and again, we said that VCam logo is exactly the center. So, and then again, I can crop and hold, and I'm fitting the camera behind the box. So now, and we can nudge that around with the arrow keys to get it just right. And again, you want to make sure that that camera is behind the overlay, but on top of the game capture. Then we lock that, and we'd basically be ready to go. Your gameplay will come in here. Your camera will show up here, and you'd have yourself a nice static overlay for your stream. That is pretty much it, guys. That's how you do it.